Hello and welcome to my retro watches. On the bench today is my favourite brand, of course it's Seiko, but this is not any Seiko. This is quite a special Seiko because it's crossed in two genres. It is actually a mechanical watch that's also transistorized, which means it's electronic as well. Now these were around in the mid 70s. Seiko had been making other versions of this previous to that. And yeah, absolutely fascinating. Now, I was introduced to these very recently by my friend Andy Windle at the Vintage Japanese Watch Company. More on him a little bit later. And he's got me really into these very, very quickly. So I bought this one. And the pictures on eBay were pretty good, but they weren't close up enough. And I thought, oh, it's an absolutely fantastic dial. But now I've got it home, you can see there's a lot going on. A lot of debris. And that dial looks a little bit blistered. Turn it over, and here we see the 0703A Elnix movement, and this one's in a bit of a bad shape, but these things are absolutely fascinating. I'm going to show you in this video. I'm going to take this watch apart, I'm going to clean all the parts, I'm going to try and get it running if we can. Now I do have a donor movement that is absolutely perfect, but it's got something, one part broken in it, which we can use should we not be able to get this going, because I need to show you how these things work, because it is, like I say, fascinating. This thing has got a balance wheel and it's powered by a battery. So you've got battery circuits, just a transistor in here, which obviously switches it on and off. There's a coil and a balance wheel. And yes, how it transfers all that through, which as we take it apart, hopefully you're going to find as interesting as I have. And also this actually beats 28,800 vibrations per hour, which is going to give it a pretty decent smooth tick as well. So you have the reliability in many respects of a battery, etc, etc. The thing isn't going to go flat, is it? Let's face it, not after a couple of days like a mainspring would, but you're still getting that smooth tick. So even back in the early 70s, that's the sort of thing we were going for with Seiko. Citizen had their own version out at the same time. This is the Citizen Cosmotron, and of course I had to buy one of these as well. Just well, look at it, it's so retro, and that's the name of this channel. We've got facet crystal. If you're going to enjoy this video and perhaps you want to see this one, then leave a comment below. If enough of you people say yes, I want to see that after watching the Seiko, then I will strip and do that one, because this one does need a repair. Okay, we need to first of all remove the movement from the case, and we can assess the damage to the dial, which I'm hoping is not too bad. We have this metal retaining spring first of all, and then we have the movement ring. These are sometimes a bit clunky. There we go. And on this you have to pull the crown, which I should have done with the movement ring still in. If I put my finger on the circuit, that shouldn't matter. And there you see it has just popped out that little release. Okay, so we're going to see it for the first time like I am. I've not seen this yet. Dreading it really. And there we go. Well, you can see that the battery has blistered the dial, or got under the lacquer and a bit discoloured. But you know what? I think under crystal, certainly with my eyes anyway, that's probably going to be okay. There's nothing I'm going to do to try and save the dial at all, because I've always found that working on a dial will mean usually certain disaster. So the hands there, I reckon that I might be able to do something about. Well, dial's off, and if I turn it to an angle look, all of that debris, that is all battery juice, for want of a better word. I'm not sure at this stage how I'm going to clean that off other than Rodico and a prayer. But yeah, we'll get round to that. I'm predicting now then that the movement is going to be full of that stuff, which is going to be epic really, especially if we can get it going again. So of course it's always following the same old Seiko design, C-clip to hold on that date wheel, or day wheel should I say. Now the date complication and the whole dial side on this movement is particularly interesting. Quite a nice design actually, however not when it is covered in all of that. Yeah, this is going to be nothing short of epic in its cleaning. So let's just keep stripping it down, and I'll try to, well, tell you what things do what when we get to it. Now, if I'm honest, I was a little disappointed with the watch that turned up, and I shouldn't be really, because I paid a total of 26 UK pounds for this and about £9 delivery. It was something like that. And Elnix is normally quite expensive, and this one did appear to look really nice. There was no picture of the insides, which is typical. Ironically, the case back was really loose, so the previous owner had a look in there, I guess, but just omitted the photographs, and you can see why. They wanted to sell the item. But so I thought I'd got a bargain, and I'd have a really nice looking dialed watch. I knew I had this other movement as well, so I was a bit disappointed to see this. But then I thought, you know what, get the cameras out, talk about it to you guys, and highlight this particular genre of movement, because as you will find out, they are absolutely fascinating. They're also very mechanical. Everything's metal, as you will see, which is good for us hobbyist watchmakers. It means we can work on these things, and obviously they are serviceable as well, and they need to be serviced. They have jewels, pivots, all of the normal things that you would expect to see in a mechanical watch. I don't know if that's coming out on film, but even the threads in that little tiny, and it is a tiny screw, all covered in battery juice. So I have got my work cut out. I think I'm probably going to have to ultrasonic all of these parts in some kind of solution, whether it's alcohol or something, just to wash that off, because I'm reluctant really to put it all through the watch cleaning machine and have all that debris then in my cleaning fluids, because the cleaning fluids are very expensive, and that will potentially stay on the parts as they go through, you know, when I'm cleaning other watches, so to speak. So this little bridge here, or cover plate, I was going to say is rock solid, but it's actually come free just as I said it. I'm absolutely amazed by the amount of debris. I don't think I've ever seen such a leakage that's got on everything on the dial side as well. So I think the watch must have been dialed down in a drawer or such like, and that's what's caused the extent of the damage. As you can see, this is the only spring. It's a very long spring, and it's okay actually. It's not as vicious as you would expect. Actually, I think there is another spring, come to think of it, but there we are. So that's disarmed that, and then we can move. Oh, we can't move the date wheel yet because we have this little bridge plate here, and this plays a role significantly, as we will find out in the rebuild. You're not going to see the mistake, but I made this mistake when I rebuilt the first one that I did off camera, because, well, you'll find out. I'll explain it. So right now, just remove everything that I can, as easily as I can. This is an interesting setup. I've seen this on quite a few watches, probably some on the channel. You have a cannon pinion connected to a wheel as well, and you can make a mistake by not oiling. You have to oil in here, otherwise the cannon pinion can be quite stiff. Again, this one is absolutely covered in what is it, electrolytes, isn't it, I think. Right, now we can get the date wheel successfully out the way. Now we don't like that happening. It's an odd shaped movement, and finding a suitable holder has been quite challenging. That screw was particularly tight. What is interesting here, if you can see, has like a little shim. And the ironic thing is, seeing this now, is that I know the other one that I built, I put that shim in the wrong place because I put it underneath that part there. So I'm going to have to go back and correct that. Okay, keyless works. This here is got a little cam type screw here. So I have to move out the way. It's actually come out the whole screw. I didn't know it did that. So there you are, I've learned something new, or I've made a mistake. I don't know which one that is yet. The part is particularly stuck. Some of these screws are in really hard. And I'd say I'm quite possibly the first person to have been in this watch movement. So we have another sort of spring acting as the yoke, which I'm going to need my bigger tweezers for. Setting lever. And there's this little thing here is actually the hacking lever, would you believe? So I think that's actually two parts, but it's stuck together. And then we've got the jewel, which I'll take out separately at the end. We can now remove the stem, take out the pinions and the clutch, and that is the dial side complete. This little wheel here, incidentally, is riveted on, so that's not coming off. Okay, movement side now. This is the interesting part, even though it's completely haggard. This is a battery clamp that goes over the top, which is completely missing, which is a real shame. So you can see little shards of it still left. And this little arm here is kind of part of the hacking mechanism. Slacken these off first. Don't want to have any sort of mishaps, especially when you're near the balance. Okay. We can lift the board off. And there you go. That's as basic as a circuit as you can get. Now, I'm not into electronics, so I don't really know much, but we'll have a transistor, I'm guessing some capacitors or such like. It's just switching the power on and off. I think that's all it's doing. So we can clean that with a fibre brush and a bit of alcohol. But now we're getting into the more interesting and intricate bits. So to remove the balance, we first of all have to remove the coil, and the coil is the weirdest coil I've ever seen. But I'll remove it and then explain a little bit about how this is working. So when I first serviced one of these the other day, I was at a loss how this worked, but look, that just slides out. There is your coil. And essentially that is sitting underneath the balance wheel by the pallet forks, and this is no conventional balance. Well, it is in many respects. You've got a hairspring and it's there to regulate. However, the balance, as I'm going to try to demonstrate now, there, right. If I gently lift that up out of the pallet forks, perhaps on the other camera you might be able to see. Let's turn it over actually. You have sort of two, you have a balance wheel and then this bit at the bottom, and the bit at the bottom under that plate, if I just put it down, now this reflection. So here on this plate is magnets. I'm just going to move it safely away. So the coil switches on and off, obviously creates a different pole, and that makes the balance swing and then move the pallet fork. And that, I think, is absolutely fascinating. How they've gone from a battery through, it's kind of doing everything the wrong way around, isn't it? You'd normally be going through all of the train of wheels down to the pallet fork to move the balance, and here we're going through a coil to move the balance, to move the pallet fork in order to move the train. So it's reverse technology in many respects. Truly remarkable. And what you can also see, everything's made out of brass, certainly here, and that's because we don't want the magnetism going into all the screws. The pallet fork, if I take it out now, is a really interesting thing as well. And if we get the watch going, I'll be able to show it you in a greater depth. So out comes the pallet fork. Just inspected its pinions, and you'll see that the jewels are really thin and really long, which is quite interesting. And then you look at the escape wheel, and it has these particular strange teeth in it. It's actually got a ratchet down here as well, which we'll get real close up to on the rebuild, so I can show you that a bit better. And those teeth are obviously to sort of drive, obviously the pallet fork is actually driving that wheel, so it's using those slopes to push it essentially, and push it through the train. I really like the idea of this watch and the technology that's meeting with still watchmaking. You know, we've still got a train of wheels, still everything conventional, but a really cool way of looking at how to do things. So we're not far off now. We're going to take the train wheel bridge off and we can be able to actually see the wheels inside. So the worry is it is a little bit gunked up. Oh, and we have this plate here. I forgot, that's just a little spacer plate to rise the balance to the right height. It's particularly stiff as well. finally. Okay, and I did forget about one most crucial. You just see it here. You've actually got the second hand pinion that would normally come sliding out from the top. Hopefully it's not corroded. I honestly can't tell at this stage. That will need either replacing or a really good clean. Everything's going to need a really good clean. Okay, so out with the wheels. Now this part we'll get on to. I'm going to leave it in situ for now. For reasons I will say later. Right, one last part. This is the, I don't know what part you'd call this. Now I've not been able to find any online manual, guide, anything on these, so you're kind of flying blind, but my intuition tells me where I'll need to oil and what I need to take care of. Now that screw was particularly tight and the screw's now rolled off. And then we've got that one last spring in there, look. Okay, that is an Elnix pretty much stripped down. I can get this power block off here as well, which will need to come off obviously for cleaning, but I just need to pry that up. Okay, I'm going to clean the parts. This is going to require a heck of a lot and some pegging as well, and then hopefully on the other side of that, join me for the rebuild. Wish me luck. Here we can see the old electrolyte which was under the battery terminal, and it just all flakes off. Not very nice at all, but of course I've got to try and remove some of that before I do some serious cleaning. But yucky stuff. And the Diashock Jewel, nice little springs. So used to these now. I've done hundreds of Seikos and they're in every single one. That's going to be removed for cleaning. Now in this jar I've got Goddard's Silver Dip, and I've used this before to clean tarnish and such like off plates, certainly brass plates and things, or this sort of colour. And here we find that it sort of just disintegrates all that electrolyte. It's great, it dissolves it completely. You can actually see it frothing away in some of these shots. As you can see there, it just fizzes all away, which is great. Bit of a chance, but yeah, what I'll have to do of course is, once I've dipped everything, is then run all these parts through the watch cleaning machine, because I don't really want to leave that stuff on for any length of time. But a good little hack, good little trick, seems to work well, but use with caution of course. Okay, let's get on with the rebuild. Now what a difference the cleaning makes. At least the main plate now looks a little bit more healthy than it did previously. Now I know that that is a bit dodgy because it needs to be a bit further down. Let's try it like that and see. Then we've got this one with a long pin on it. And the thing is with this is it interacts with that spring, so it's got to be the right side of it. And right now it's not. we are, that's properly armed now. Two brass screws. And that has just ended everything. The brass screw has snapped in there, which is a major problem because the brass screw is clearly there for well, to stop any, I would imagine, any current or something. There's only one reason why you'd have a brass screw, or magnetism. So I'm stuck because I've now got a screw in the hole, which I've got to try and clear, and I've got to try and find another screw. Darn it! So I have my little cheap Chinese AliExpress special screw extractor here, and you have a pin on one side and like a twist drill on the other. You line them up, tighten them up on the screw, and in theory all we have to do is screw or turn the movement around like this, or the main plate around, and that should, if you've got it set up right, wind out the spring. Now of course I can't see anything, whoops, as you can see, because the camera is in the way. So let me just quickly check. And I would say that screw is now out. Brilliant. And hopefully you can see that just there. See? So it's got it out. It has made a bit of a scratch on the main plate because that little twist drill thing is pretty aggressive, and you've got to get it lined up absolutely perfectly. But it's a win. We can carry on with the rebuild. Well, the screw extraction worked, and I've managed to put one from a donor in the hole successfully. Assembled all this, put a screw in this hole, and exactly the same thing happened. It just completely sheared. I extracted it again, but I've damaged the threads in there, and I then thought, hang on a minute, when I actually disassembled the movement, I also had a part on this side that was over here. It was like a cam thing come off, and that in there, my friends, you can't really see it, is the remnants of that, because that also sheared. So whether the leakage of that battery has weakened the brass screws, I don't know, or maybe it's just made them like baked in, if you like, so stiff to turn. So this main plate I'm just going to call scrap. After all of that work, it's no good. But fortunately, of course, I have a donor, so I've stripped and cleaned this one, left the parts intact that I want to, and just to refer to that one part, it is just here, this thing here that's missing. So I'm going to now assemble using this main plate. But there you go, you live and learn. Thank God I've got a spare to carry on the video. Next part on is a bit strange. This is the dial side, and I've got to put a part on that I'll later remove. Now this little plate here, once we get it in position, so I screw that down. It's got a jewel here, and that is for one of the train wheels that we need to place. Once I've built the other side, I then have to remove this later on to get the hour wheel in and things like that. But it just aids. This was a mistake I made when I first did one of these movements. Here we're looking at the second-hand pinion. The one on the left was treated in the silver dip and then not cleaned quick enough, and this is the one from the donor. So just a word of caution really, I didn't wash the parts as fast as I should have through the cleaning machine, and thus it gave it some tarnish. So I'm going to use the donor just because it's aesthetically more pleasing. I don't actually think there's going to be anything wrong with this black one, but you never know. So just a cautionary tale really. As much as the silver dip seems to clean the leaky battery off it, it doesn't necessarily do any good to certain steel components. Train wheel bridge is finally, and I mean finally, on. It did take some effort, certainly off camera, and you can see everything spins freely. And if I try to spin it backwards, it stops, and that's what I want to draw your attention to, this tiny lever right there. So draw your attention to this little piece of steel here, this little lever, I don't know what you'd call it really. And that works on this sort of ratchet wheel here, as you can see, and that's to stop any backlash. So the escape wheel can only go one way nice and freely. If it tries to go backwards, it's going to jam on that. And that has to be just off the teeth, like so. You've got an adjuster cam over here. You can bring it in and out, and that is the setting that you want. I believe, certainly that's what my friend Andy's told me anyway. So there we go, a little bit of insight there for you. Looking at the pallet fork now, and you can see it's got this unusual bit at the bottom here, and that is a magnet. So the balance wheel has got some magnets on, which I can't show you because of the way it's designed, and this obviously sitting under the coil, so the coil is creating that magnetic field to move the balance, and clicking this across as well. Very unusual. Of course, steel tweezers are a nightmare. I've got some really bad dressed titanium tweezers here to handle this one. And the pallet bridge has two brass screws. Of course, I've got to be very careful how I screw these in now, just in case I over tighten and break them. Time to fit the very bizarre looking balance. I've never done one like this before with the two wheels, but it's still the same principle. The difference is you're not going to see the watch run straight away, so I've got to assemble everything else, but we'll just make sure that it's not overbanked past the pallets. A little shake there obviously confirms that. Time for the coil. Still can't get over how strange looking they are. Very, very interesting design. Mobius 9010 for all the wheel pivots. And the battery insulator, that also needed a good clean. It came out of a donor, that one. And then finally the circuit. With its three retraining screws. I'm guessing they're all making good contacts as well, to be fair. That's why they're clustered in such a way. And then this lever is, well, the hacking lever in many respects. It touches that post, and that's what makes it start. And we'll just slot the battery in. Okay, it is now the moment of truth. Battery's in. This is the hacking lever. So at the moment the movement is hacked. Hopefully if I just push this across, yes, there you go. Now you can see it running. Absolutely wonderful. Just a big clean. That's all it's taking on this one. A few donor parts, I suppose. So we can continue on, oil the jewels, and of course build all the keyless and the calendar works. Yes, it's working. That's brilliant. I've got to do it again. Fantastic. Here's the hour wheel and cannon pinion combination. And I'm going to try, on camera at least, to oil a bit of D5 in that recess there. That's way too much. So I'll mop a little bit of that up, and as it turns it will lubricate once it's in the movement. As we're on a different main plate now, I've got another die shock jewel to do. The many uses of Rodico. Now, I normally use my auto oiler for these now, but for filming purposes, I thought I'd just do it manually. And I've pretty much got a knack of how to fit these. Occasionally they do run away. The main point is just to get a tweezer in the middle and use another tweezer just to push those tabs down. Occasionally it jumps out like that, but it's easy enough to manipulate it back in. Gentle touch, that's all that's required. More 9010, and then this is D5 for all the higher friction points. There's the pinion and the clutch. And the blue grease for the highest places of friction. And we'll just line up the yoke to the clutch. That's a part of the hacking mechanism. Like I said previously, I'm working without a manual, so I just use my intuition as to where oil. It could be incorrect, but you tend to think that wherever metal touches metal, it's worth putting something there. As you'll see, case in point here now. Oiling in strange places, or greasing in strange places, and that's just because there's a cover plate that goes on, and that's where the cover plate seems to touch those other parts. And don't you just love it when it does that? So I'll let you into a little secret, because I'm now narrating over the video at this point, and I'm fitting that cover back on, and I shouldn't be, let's put it that way. Now I'm just testing the crown and the hack, and you can just see the balance stops there. This is for the calendar. Attentively turn that cam this time. You don't want to break another one. So we have minute wheel, and then the hour wheel, before it all dawns on me. Bugger. Okay, after that disaster, I've removed that, fitted the hour wheel, fitted the calendar wheel, and the little intermediate wheel as well that was hidden under that plate. So if you're ever going to follow along to this video, I suggest you don't do as I do, and you rebuild all of this first before you put the movement on the other side. Absolute lunacy, but it is the second time I've ever done this, and you know, you get my mistake as they happen, and that's really frustrating to keep messing around there, because you've got to try and line that pivot back up again from the train wheel. So yes, not as easy as you think, but there we go. I've made my mistakes and live by them. Right, let's continue. Now using a day and date wheel from the donor, because the ones that came with this watch were just that little bit grubby and faded, whereas these ones are absolutely mint. So make it look a little bit better. And then I've got to work out where the spring went. Do I put that spring on afterwards? Now can't remember. Maybe I think I've got to put the spring on first, haven't I? Then load it up afterwards. Okay, right. False alarm. There we have it. Just got to clean up the hands, put the dial on, and we're done. And then I can show it you in all of its glory. Okay, let's get that done. So we're looking at the dial, and you can see the blistering from the battery, and as far as I know, there is absolutely nothing I can do about that. That is under the lacquer. Just got this little rubber brush thing here. You can see it doesn't do anything. So it'll either just stay like that, or it will get a little bit worse. I'm not sure. Finding a dial at the moment is very difficult. I will look for more donors. I don't know what to do with this watch, in all honesty. I've actually bought a better Elnix for the collection, which I'll show at the end of the video. So this one, to be honest, this one was bought to try and repair and sell. So maybe I might still sell it even in this condition. So I'll make that decision at the end of the video, because perhaps one of you guys might still want to buy it. Who knows? Anyway, the hands are a similar position, but I think we can do a little bit with those. So let's bring those into shot now. Okay, here's the second hand and the minute hand. And I might just need to hold the end out. But yeah, you can see on that one then, that's still cleanable. So I'll take a bit more off that, and then I'll use that little version tool that I've got to polish them up a little bit. I don't really want to put too much on the version tool. I'll just bring it into shot. It's like a leather felt on the end, so I don't want to put that grime on there, so I'll clean it off first and then use that afterwards. Right, time for the big reveal. Here is the finished watch, and what a total disaster this has been. You can see it is not running. It's not running because I've now taken the balance out to actually use in a donor, because the donor has now become the main watch. This ran for a couple of weeks, to be fair, and then it stopped, and I couldn't figure out why it had stopped. At the same time, the blistering on the dial, you still can't see it. It doesn't come across very well on camera, I don't think. Let's just see if I can zoom in properly. Yeah, you can see it there. It's really ugly. I couldn't help but keep looking at it. To change the glass would require smashing it, because the bezel here does not have a slot to get it out, so you have to push it out from the inside, which means you've basically got to break the crystal out and glue another one back in. And I didn't fancy doing that. I've also attempted to try and clean the dial. A little bit of the paint flicked off as well. So I got pretty disillusioned. But in typical my retro watches style, this is now going to go in a drawer while I wait patiently, whether it be months or years, for another one to come up that's in rough condition but has a good dial. So all is not lost. So I wanted to show you, obviously, an Elnix working, and it turns out that I bought two donors. I'll bring them in now. Here's the first donor, and as you can see, the donor is now a proper watch. It's been really nice, this one. I didn't think it would work as well as it would. It needed a balance, and that's what I've put in there. I like this sort of reflective dial. Sometimes it looks quite dull, and then other times it's really, really good. So that's that one. This is another donor I bought just in case, and this one has turned out even better. Look, so I've just given it's a bit battered, I suppose, the case, for want of a better word, but it's a lovely looking shape. A lovely looking watch. At the end of the video I'll put some wrist shots up of these. And again, this has got that sort of reflective dial. But I love the indices. Look how raised they are. Now these things are beating at 28,800 vibrations a minute. So you can see there, sorry, an hour. So you can see there we've got a lovely smooth tick. Also, finally, got this one. And this is my favourite. See that? It has a facet crystal, and that facet crystal is on the inside. So that dial is actually just a blue burst dial with some graining to it. But my word, does that crystal give you a whole new different look. Strap is not Seiko. I put that one on separately. This is to be serviced. This one has been serviced, and the other donor put a battery in and it runs fine. So I'm going to finish the video really by putting it on the Timegrapher so you can see what we do with these. They're an electronic watch, but you can regulate them on the Timegrapher. So let's show you that now. So now you're looking at the movement in action. As you can see, it's beating quite fast, and that's all being controlled basically by a current and magnets. So if we then cut to the Timegrapher, you have to completely ignore the amplitude, because that has no bearing on this whatsoever, because the amplitude again is being created by the magnets. But we can control the rate, and of course we can control the beat error. So I'm just going to try and tweak this a little bit and see if we can get it any better. And as you can see there, that first move has indicated that I'm moving the regulator in the wrong direction. So I just use a screwdriver. Other people will use tweezers, you can use pegwood, whatever you feel comfortable with. I've always used a screwdriver, and that's what I've got used to. So I just need to wait for the trace to look a bit clearer so I can see what I'm doing. There we go. So that beat error should improve better than 0.9, I would assume. There we are, 0.2. I'm just going to bring the rate down a little bit first, because sometimes that does change the beat error slightly. Now the rate on these can be slightly controlled by that screw, but not a lot. I'm not sure if I've left myself enough room with the microscope to get under, but we'll try. So you can see I'm turning this. It's like on a cam screw, and you have to be a bit careful because you can almost unscrew the whole thing. So we're putting an adjustment in there as much as I'd want to go really, and that's brought it down a bit, but not enough, and you can see it's possibly going to open up the beat error a little bit. So we'll continue on. It's a very strange angle for me this, trying to do it on the microscope. And I've just marked it as well. Did you see that? Look. That's for your enjoyment. I think, because I'm coming at a funny angle, I'll try and turn it round. That'll make it a lot easier to save the damage. This watch is going to be kept probably, so I'm not too worried. That's a nudge too far again, but we should be able to hopefully adjust that with the screw. I do like these fine tuning regulator screws. So there we go. Still want to see if I can nudge the beat error just a little bit. Can't remember which way I've got to go now. Okay, that's going to be as good as it's going to get, and it looks like we need to try and slow it down just ever so slightly. It's very much a game of cat and mouse. And looking at that, that's going to be slightly minus. I never like a watch to run a bit slow. I'd rather it be a little bit fast. But there we go. So that's a pretty straight line, as you can see. We can try it in different positions and see what happens. And this is dial down. Sorry, dial up, I beg your pardon. That's absolutely perfect, isn't it, really? And I'll just try pendant up or crown up, so I haven't got the room to turn it any further, and you can see that's great. I would say that's happily regulated, nice and accurate. Beauty of these watches, though, is that you get all of that mechanical movement. You get a smooth tick, a very smooth tick on this one, with it being 28,000, and yet you've got a battery in it, which, I don't know, the heathens will say no, you need a mainspring, but I've actually quite enjoyed these because you don't have to worry about putting them down for 3 or 4 days. You come back to them, they're still running. So it is like the quartz watch, but only mechanical. So a great little invention. I'm just watching this on the Timegrapher as I'm talking, and it's yeah, the rate's going up again, but there we go, never mind. So yeah, that's kind of the end of the video. I'm going to put some shots up now of them looking all nice and splendid. If you are interested in an Elnix or any other type of sort of electronic or quartz Seikos, then my friend Andy at the Vintage Japanese Watch Company is the man. He buys and sells almost new old stock ones of these, but if you've got one and you need it servicing, for instance, again, he's the guy. He does all of that as well. There will be links down below. I've actually done a video when I met him in his workshop as well, if you wanted to see that, just in the back catalogue there. So there we go. That's the end of this one. It's been fun. Broken screws, yeah, lots of trouble. That basically, the exploded battery it was inside there was quite incredible. I've really enjoyed these movements, and I'm going to be doing some more of these. Again, if you wanted to see the Cosmotron one, then please leave a link below, and I'll think about doing that one very soon as well. If you've enjoyed it, of course, give it a thumbs up. That's all I'm ever going to ask, and it really does mean a lot. If 10,000 of you watch this video and 5,000 of you give me a thumbs up, I would be the happiest man alive. So please go and do that. Leave a comment below, read every single one, reply to as many as I can. Subscribe if you've enjoyed it. Plenty more videos in the back catalogue. There's loads of videos in the pipeline to come, so stay tuned for all of those. And thank you very much. Look after yourself, keep yourself healthy, and I will see you in the next video very soon. Thank you, and bye for now.